Aloha, hockey fans, and welcome to the Blue Note Fan Report. I'm Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, your host on the only show that is by a fan, for the fans, and most definitely about you, the fans. I gotta tell you, I had a really great show set up before the news of the day hit us. My guest today is actually connected to the news of the day, so I'm kind of glad that I held up on releasing this. So, let's get into the news of the day. This morning, around 7 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time, it was announced that the St. Louis Blues traded their 2022 7th round pick and goalie Jake Allen to the Les Habitants, the Montreal Canadiens, for a 2020 3rd round pick and a 2020 7th round pick. Notice I didn't say the Canadiens' 3rd and 7th round pick. That's because these are picks that the Canadiens acquired from the Washington Capitals and the Chicago Blackhawks. They got him for nothing. Free. Didn't cost them a thing. Free draft picks from trades of getting rid of players, and you know what? Now we got Jake Allen. Jake Allen was drafted by the Blues in 2008. Got to play in the Winter Classic in Busch Stadium. Got to, Stanley Cup. Very polarizing player. You were either a Jake Allen fan or you were a Jake Allen hater. I appreciate Jake Allen, and once I heard about this trade, I was in a little bit of shock and a little bit of awe. So I had to get up and start making texts and phone calls and things like that. And I got on the horn, and this is what I've kind of learned and what I think. First of all, let's talk about Jake Allen himself. Drafted by the Blues in 2008. He's had a pretty good career here. In 2016, he was played one game during the game 4. Yeah, game 4. No, yeah, game 4 during the Western Conference Finals. I got to see that game. Next year, the Blues traded Brian Elliott, and Jake Allen became the number 1, and that's when, unfortunately, some of his issues showed up. And the rest is kind of history. Now, Jake Allen is second all-time in wins at 121, 3 wins behind my guest today, who has 124. Hint number 1. Jake is second in shutouts at 21, just 3 behind Brian Elliott, who has 24 or maybe 25. Jake has been a good Blue. During the run last year, the Stanley Cup run, he played ultimate teammate. He emulated other goalies, which I think helped his game. A lot of people tell me I'm full of it, but I do think it helped his game. Because if you notice, his glove got better, and his style got a little bit better, and he was better on the angles. I think by trying to emulate other goalies, it made him a better goalie. That's what Montreal wants. Now, with him going to Montreal, he will back up Carey Price. They are spending close to $15 million on goalies. Price is making $10 million for the next 6 years, and Jake will be making right around $4.5 next year. So it's a 1-year deal. I wish Jake all the luck in the world, and still hoping I get a chance to talk to him. I reached out to his agent, Alien Waugh, and Alien told me that Jake is happy, sad to leave St. Louis, but glad or excited about going to Montreal. They're a good organization, a good team. They're going to talk to Mark Bergevin and see what's up. That's what he could tell me. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. I'm still reached out to him. I'm going to try and get Jake Allen on the show. Who knows? Maybe now that he's not with the Blues, he'll come on. Just wait until he gets up there in that fishbowl in Montreal. Now, what does this all mean? Why now? Well, Doug Armstrong had said during, right after the season ended, he did a 10 questions on NHL.com, and it's on stlouisblues.com. And when asked about Pietrangelo, he said, well, until we have a deal in place, there's no sense moving pieces. It's an either-or situation. Well, up until today, and even through today, everything that I heard was that the two camps were miles apart. Trying not to make my hand disappear. Miles apart. Well, that wasn't until this afternoon, apparently. Jamie Hirsch from NHL.com made a statement that it seemed like things heated up. And then the trade happens. So, is there a deal in place? Well, we don't know. But if there is a deal in place, another move or two has to be made. So if there's another trade within, say, the next 7 days, then yes, they've reached a deal with Pietrangelo. Would surprise me a bit, and this move surprised me. And the fact that what they got for him, they did not get enough, not in my eyes. Should have gotten more. I think you could have gotten more. I think you could have fleeced Buffalo again. That's just my thought process there. So, they make this trade. You know, Jake said, you know, really nice things about, you know, his time in St. Louis and how the city's always going to have a place in his heart. Jake, will have a place in our heart for you too. But it got me to thinking, why make this move now if you don't have a deal in place? And I don't know this for a fact, and I don't have any word. This is just speculation. But it is possible that Jake asked for a trade. I'm not sure if he wanted to get traded to Montreal, but he might have asked for this trade. I have reached out to Ollie and Waugh and have not received a response. So this is just my conjecture. And as you know, I've talked about my guest. My guest is connected to Mr. Allen in some way, in that he is the managing director of an agency firm that controls Binnington, Tarasenko, Perron, Steen, Shin, Binnington, Walker, and Maroon. I think I got everybody. My guest is, I mean, there's only one way to introduce this guy. He led the league in wins for the 1980s. He led the league in shutouts for the 1980s. He was at the 1981 All-Star Game. He's been a first and a second All-Star in 81 and 89 respectively. He's worked with the NHL Players Association. He's a lawyer. But with all of that, the one thing that we'll all remember about him is this. The Ute! The Ute! That's right. My guest today is none other than Mr. Mike the Ute. He's the managing director of hockey at Octagon Sports. He is a wonderful person to talk to. He played in the alumni game in Busch Stadium. Played 10 minutes. We talk a little bit about that. You guys are going to enjoy this. And for my Australian fans, you guys need to pay very close attention towards the end of the interview. So please, please give a large, huge Blue Note Fan Report welcome to Mr. Mike the Ute! Please give a huge, huge Blue Note Fan Report welcome to me, the first goalie that I ever really enjoyed. Please welcome Mike Mike, welcome to the Blue Note Fan Report.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, like I said, I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s with my hockey, and I remember the first time I heard when you were in goal, guys yelling at, and I thought they were booing. And
Yeah.
you know, this was ESPN. I remember when your guys were like originally on ESPN or on TV back in the early 80s, they had to explain that they were saying your name and not booing.
Yeah. It happens a lot. It happens a lot. I was mentioning before, my wife actually was at a hockey game, and some guy, probably you, was screaming that in her ear all night, and she was so annoyed. And then we happened to, ironically, as life would have it, we met that evening. So it was, we got a big chuckle over that.
Yeah. No, it probably wasn't me. I was up in the cheap seats back then.
Well, you know, I don't know where she was sitting. She was with a girlfriend, so I doubt whether they were down in that, you know, lower bowl. But anyway, it was great memories for me, obviously, and you know, it's, you know, just lucky to have had the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still fangirling over here with you on the show. So let's start where I normally start. Can you tell us where you're from and how you got into hockey, how it became a love for you?
Sure. Well, I grew up just outside of Toronto, within a mile of the city limits, but it was the country back then. Small little town called Woodbridge. You know, hockey was just what you did in the wintertime, October to March, no spring hockey or summer hockey. And when hockey was over, we moved on to baseball or whatever else was, you know, your interest. It was the kind of thing that you did. Wasn't a big deal. We played more street hockey than we did you know, ice hockey. But growing up particularly in Toronto with the Leafs and the rivalry with Montreal, and, you know, hockey was, you know, something that most kids got, you know, drawn into. And, you know, it's like anything else, you know, you by the time you get to 8 or 9, you have a dream. You know, you keep it to yourself, and one day you wake up and you're playing in St. Louis.
So if I remember correctly, you were drafted in '76 by both the NHL and the WHL in the second round?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, I don't know what round, probably fourth or fifth. There's only 17 teams there. I think I was the 56th overall pick in the NHL draft. And I remember only because that's the year I got born. I was born in 1956. So it was, but, you know, back then the draft, the St. Louis, the NHL draft was just a teleconference, right? There was no fanfare. And, you know, I received a phone call that I was, you know, drafted by St. Louis. And I was in college at the time. I just finished my junior year at Bowling Green. You know, and you just, you know, there wasn't the drama that surrounds the draft or you know, the NHL, and it was almost an afterthought, right? I went back for my senior year, graduated, and I really didn't know what to expect or what to do. It just so happened that St. Louis that year, at the end of the 76-77 season, the Solomon family walked away from the club and turned the keys to the franchise into the NHL, and there wasn't a St. Louis Blues when I graduated from Bowling Green. So I signed in the WHA with Cincinnati, and 2 years later, Blues had the right to reclaim my rights into the rules of the merger, and you know, that's how I wound up back in St. Louis.
So this is when Ralston Purina took over the Blues. Would have been 78, if I remember correctly.
So, yeah, the 77-78 season.
Ralston. Ralston Purina took over the Blues and renamed the arena the Checkerdome.
Right.
And gave it that iconic name, almost as iconic as its original name.
Yeah, well, as it turned out, but yeah, it was. Listen, St. Louis had I want to say a steep history in hockey, right? They had I think the Flyers were the American League team. I think it was Chicago's team. And then when the Blues came to St. Louis, by 73, 1973, I'm in college. So we would play the Billikens. They were in our conference. So we would go to St. Louis and play Friday and Sunday and go to the Blues game on Saturday. And, going to a game in St. Louis at that time, and particularly even before that in the late 60s when they're, true expansion team and when they had that success of going to the Cup finals, it was very much like going to a game in Toronto. When you went to a game in Toronto or Montreal for that matter, it was an event. You went out for dinner, you dressed up. When I was a kid, my dad came home with tickets to the Leaf game, and then he told me I had to wear my Sunday clothes to the game, right, which is a coat and tie. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And he said, fine, you can stay home. But those are rules, and that's how people dressed. And when you went to St. Louis, it was very much that way. I mean, the feeling was you were in Toronto or Montreal. So, there's a lot of electricity. There, people enjoyed it. It was, it was great going to the game when we were in college. But it was a scene. It was a lot of fun.
I got to tell you, you told that story in 2016 when they honored the goalies, honored you and Grant Fuhr and Cujo. God, I couldn't believe I can't remember his Cujo. And I'm thinking, I still go to the games. I wear dress slacks, a dress shirt with my jersey over it, and I usually bring 2 or 3 jerseys and change jerseys at halftime. But I still dress like that. I remember that. It was an event. It was a big deal to get tickets to a game and to go even back then. And I still honor that tradition. So
right.
That.
Well, I when I go to a game, I have a coat and tie on or suit on. It's part of my job. And all that. I was, I in a negotiation with the GM with Lou Lamoriello, and Lou as buttoned down as they get. And, I told him, it was, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, I went to my first NHL game where I didn't have a tie on. Going to NHL games for over 30 years, right? All the same way, more than that, right? About 50 years. But anyway, it was just, that was the culture. And, hey, listen, I was a kid. I was happy to do it. I got to go to the game.
Oh, yeah. So you spent your first 2 years in the WHA with the Cincinnati Spinners. Now, the WHA, kind of like the ABA, was this offshoot league that was trying to compete with the NHL and that. What was it like playing in that league then? Because, I mean, there's times where you would have a game, but the team would fold before the game.
We didn't quite. By the time I got there, the teams did their folding in the summer. It was Houston was in the league my first year. They weren't my second year. They moved. The Howes moved to Hartford. But for me, this was the interesting part about the WHA is I got to play against, the older players, and it would have been true in the NHL too, I guess, at that point. But my first game was against Gordie Howe, right? As a kid, I grew up watching, obviously, Gordie Howe, right? So I'm playing, Johnny McKenzie was on that team. Pat Stapleton, came to our team later, who played with the Blackhawks and was a terrific mentor for me my first year, and so. And then, we had, Bobby Hull was playing in the league, and, it was just a thrill to play against them. And they were every one of them was just a really great guy, right? Like you're in the league, they're in the league. There was no distinction for them, right? Like you're in the league, I'm in the league, you're Mike Liiiiiiiuuuuuuuuuutttttt, I'm Bobby Hull, right? It's just, it didn't seem to matter. They were accepting of everybody and really willing to, help out and stuff like that. I mean, it was just a great time to, that era hockey player, they were tough and they were all that good stuff, but it was, they were just really great guys.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've talked to a few from that era, and the one thing that they really mention is the camaraderie between some of the older players like Gordie. I've never heard one person speak an ill word of Gordie Howe. And this is, and I'm talking people that have been close to him, Brett Hull, no filter on that man, correct? I mean, he will say exactly, and he has never said an ill word of him or any of those guys, and it just makes you wonder.
Yeah, well, just it's a little more humbling time. People are going to point to money and that difference, and that's part of it, I guess. But I tell people the story that from that generation, that era, I met two people, Gordie Howe and Stan Musial, and they played different sports, and that's about the only difference between the two of them. And they're just just really, I don't want to say giving their time. I didn't know Stan very well, but it was, you just didn't see that. I mean, these are two of the best players ever played their respective games, but they never walked like they were among the best who ever played the game, right? They were just ordinary people for the most part. They never lost that touch that day. They just did something really, really well.
Well, I mean, you look at both of them. Stan Musial basically stayed into the game until he died. I mean, he was still a consultant with the Cardinals. And Howe played into his 70s, if I remember correctly.
50. He came back and played a game in his 60s. But I played against him when he was, I think, from 48 years old to 52. And, he wasn't the Gordie Howe that I grew up with, but he was still not somebody to mess with. And even after that, when I was in Hartford, he'd come on the ice and skate with us, and Gordie could still shoot it. Like you see this coming down the ice, and he's almost 60 years old, and you're thinking, okay, what's he going to do? And he blows one by you. Go, okay, it's just so naturally strong, from his shoulder form. I mean, he can still shoot the puck. I mean, he was so graceful, on the ice. Even when he got to 60, it was, he was remarkable.
What was it like facing a Bobby Hull shot?
Yeah. Well, by that time, it's like kids, right? Jack Nicklaus hit the ball a long way. Dustin Johnson hits it a lot further, right? So by the time I got to the NHL, it wasn't, Bobby Hull was one guy, but they had a guy, Kent Nielsen. I was more worried about that shot than Bobby Hull's shot. But Bobby's, was, legendary, one of the first curved sticks, and the puck could move. And in the WHA, there was no regulation on how big the curve could be. So, I was fortunate that I played against Bobby later in life. No masks and, a 28-year-old Bobby Hull. But as I said, there were other guys coming that shot the puck even harder. So, the guys who could shoot it, they were intimidating. Al McInnes, right? When I started, Reed Larson, guys that just shot the puck a little bit harder than everybody else.
So you came in just at the kind of the beginning era of the mask, right? When it just kind of like came in to be. I mean, you're not that far off. I hate to think of it like that. I always wore a mask, but there was a player in the WHA at the end. Andy Brown was the last guy who played without a mask. I mean, it was crazy, right? And then of course, there are some of our clients that are goalies. They've told me, hey, if I had to wear your gear, I wouldn't play. So it's just the era and what you used, and you didn't think about it. And of course, as you acquire more equipment, more protection, the game gets more reckless. So the guys shoot the puck more recklessly now than they did back then, and the technology allows everybody to shoot the puck. Like the exception. There were exceptions when we played. There were 5 or 6 guys that could on every team, and everybody else, was a notch below. Now, with the technology and right from the skates on up, the ability to hold the speed and still shoot the puck. It's daunting. Believe me. I watch the goalies today. I cringe a little bit. I don't care how much padding they've got. Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, and I've shown it. I've had Grant Fuhr on the show. So now I need Cujo, and I'll have all 3 of you guys. But I've had him, and he talked about the big difference between the padding. His padding, he said, would weigh 20 to 30 pounds. Yeah. And today's padding maybe weighs 6, covering the same
crazy.
area.
Yeah. The huge difference in the equipment for goalies. Huge difference. It still hurts when you get hit with a puck, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, ask Ben Bishop and Colton Parayko.
Yeah.
So the other thing that you were what was known as a stand-up goalie, and I've been watching old videos of you. you didn't get on the ice much. You stayed up high.
Well, I didn't get down like the guys now play on their knees all the time, right? And they'll slide around. But I wasn't, the style then was stand up, but I butterflied more than I stood on my feet, right? It's just, if the puck wasn't on the ice, I didn't feel I needed to be on the ice, right? So that you drop to stop the puck that's lower than the pads, right? So, the guys now are down on every shot. And then with Patrick Waugh, it was a percentage play where he's going to go down even before you shoot the puck, right? So if you can beat him over the shoulder, of course, the equipment got bigger. And, our gear you just couldn't do that, right? You could not eat up enough of the net just sort of getting into a position. So it was more reactive. I still think it's a better way to play. And I think the goalies, Patrick's style, it's probably a little bit different, but not, he was still extremely athletic, right? And could move in the net. And playing goal is tracking the puck and getting a piece of your body in front of it. You track it into your glove, you track it into your chest protector, you track it into your pads. And if it's off on a bad angle, you'll see the guys go down and eat up a corner of the net. But that's about the only time. And, the stand-up, I learned it from Glenn Hall. I've got a picture, in my office where I dump all the junk from my playing career. But, I saw, it was a cereal box. And Glenn Hall's down on the butterfly. And on a screenshot, that's how he would play it. And that's how I started, that's why I copied it. But I had coaches when I was growing up, they said, I'm going to tie a rope around one post and around your neck and around the other post so you can't go down. They'd lose it because I was down, in their eyes, I was a flopper. So, there was Glenn Hall, Roger Crozier, Tony Esposito, me, and then everybody went that way. But but the style was more stand-up, and a lot of guys were really stand-up guys that, didn't butterfly. But, from the 80s on, it really became, the dominant style.
Yeah. I love watching old goalies play. I really do. I love watching the old video of Jock Plant, of Glenn Hall, and I know I'm forgetting tons of names, but just the way they would come out. I mean, goalies today, they come out one step past the crease. Plant would come out to the circles.
Well, that's because the further away from the net, the trajectory of the puck would hit you lower. They didn't have a mask on. No, seriously. So they would get up. They'd be like a defenseman, and they would get blocked in here. If you sat back in the net, the puck is, and you're down, you're going to get in the head, right? So, there was a little bit of that, but also you just didn't have the bulk of the equipment, stay that far back, and you just couldn't cover enough of the net, right? I have old jerseys that, you couldn't get the equipment today wouldn't fit in that jersey, not even close to that jersey. So, you have the luxury of being, broader because you have a chest protector, then you have another layer, then you have another layer, then you have a shoulder pad, you got elbow pads. I had a piece of foam that was like 3 inches by 5 inches, and it might have been a half an inch thick. Right now, they got full elbow pad. So, I wouldn't play today with the stuff I wore either. But it provides you the ability to play a little bit deeper and not get out as far and still protect the net. And of course, if you can give yourself another foot to react to the puck, you're going to be more effective, right? When you get out 2 feet beyond the crease, you're kind of, you're creating an angle where the puck has to almost go through you, right? And that's, so the alternative, you're creating the same issue where the puck's just going to hit you. But you had to do it at the expense of being away from the net. And if the puck moved east-west, you were a little bit more, vulnerable. You had to have the athletic ability to get there. So it's, the changes are created because of the changes in the equipment, the skate all the way up, right from the ice, right to the mask.
So let's talk about your 80-81 season. This was, I think, arguably probably your best season ever. You ended up winning the Lester B. Pearson Award, and we're second to the Heart. And I think when it comes to Blues, that's the closest a Blue had been up at that point. What was that season like for you? What do you remember of that season?
Well, I remember we had, I think 7 guys scored 20 goals that year or more, right? Wayne Babbage scored 54. So you get a lot of wins when you've got that kind of scoring. We were, I think, the 4th or 5th all-time highest scoring team that year. So, you know, when you have that type of a year, you know, I played a lot of games. I was playing, there wasn't many that played. Tony played, Esposito. You know, we're playing 60 plus year in, year out. So there's a lot of games where you're, you know, well, I don't know, you know, you're there, but you're not, it's not your best. You know, it's not going to be a great night physically. You know, you're tired, you run down. You know, I've played 17, 18, you know, 20, you know, in a row, right? Then you have a day off and you're right back at it. So you have to step on the ice with the confidence that, you know, you're going to make a mistake and your team's going to go out and get 3, right? So, you know, it relieves the, you know, the pressure, the anxiety, you know, it allows you to focus a little bit more. So, you know, with playing goal, it's such a symbiotic relationship where you never initiate the play, right? And I always, people would compare it to pitching, and I go, pitching's, he's got the ball, right? He dictates the game. I dictate nothing, right? I have to react to what's going on in front of me, and so, you know, you don't have that kind of a year without a team that can control the opposition, you know, and within it, there's going to be games where we should have lost and I played well enough where we won. And there were games in that stretch where, and on a lot of other teams, we would have lost that game with my performance, but you wind up winning it because your guys, you know, score 5, right? And that was that year. It just like we found ways to win. And, you know, anytime you have individual success, you have that team finding ways to win. And, you know, last year, the Blues team, I think that was arguably the best team win of a Stanley Cup, you know, ever, or as good as any, right? Like they found a way to win. So many different players, you know, that so many different plays, you know, Alex Steen dropping down and playing with Sundqvist and Barbashev. You know, they were dominant. No teams, the top lines didn't want to play against them. I saw a few games, 3. You know, they're all. I think they were all game 4s of the series, and I think it was Boston series. Alex killing a penalty. I think he had 3 blocked shots, and 2 of them like it was a kick save, like I would make. You know, I mean, like if it's behind him, you know. Binner makes the save, there's 2 guys ready for the rebound. It never gets there. You know, all the little things, you know, add up to that kind of a year individually, and as you saw last year for the Blues. Remarkable season for them last year.
Oh, I agree. I don't want to get there yet. I still want to get it back to you and the guys that you played with in the early 80s. What are some of your favorite memories of some of the guys you played with, or what are some stories you can tell about them?
Oof.
And this
we all
rated,
you know,
R or so.
Yeah, you know, we signed a non-disclosure agreement when you come into the NHL. You know, you're not allowed to talk about that. You know, when I came to St. Louis, we had a number of players that were traded there or came there. Joe Micheletti and I came from the WHA. You know, we were roommates. Mm-hmm. You know, so it was it took a while to come together in 79, 80, but we had a good team. We had a lot of fun with each other, right? We did things outside of the game, you know, with each other. And, you know, the individuals, I mean, Bernie was, you know, super talented, and Brian was, you know, I used to say pound for pound the toughest guy in the league. And, you know, he was a leader by example. You know, he just always showed up. I mean, he's your, you know, stereotypical captain, right? And that style, you know, he's not going to wow you with his, you know, rah-rah speech. He's just going to go out there and show you how, and he's going to, you know, Brian, the way he played is, you know, there are players on a given night, you're not feeling it as a team. It's easy to slip and, you know, you lose 4-2 and go home and there's another game. Brian's a guy that drags you into the fight, right? Like, he ain't going that easy. and you're in it. You're on the road. I don't care where it is, Boston, Philadelphia, right? It's gonna, it can turn into a bit of a battle, and and Brian's, he's gonna drag you into it, and whether you're ready or not, right? Here it goes. So, we had, there were memorable guys like that, and it was just it was a good group, right? They were, we had a lot of fun together.
Was Bobby or Barclay still playing then when you were?
No. But Bark was the coach our first year.
Okay.
And then Red took over. Barclay dropped back to the assistant because he was battling cancer, but Bark was, my favorite memory of Bark was I got traded to Hartford. In St. Louis, we had a bit of a run. We fell in the playoffs. We dropped down. We were coming back. We're in first place. We're having a good year. I get traded to Hartford. They're already out of the playoffs. I'd never been out of the playoffs, right? So it was not ideal. And we played St. Louis. I didn't play the game. We were struggling. We're still in Hartford. We had, I think, 10 or 11 rookies that year by that time. And Barclay was, I was late getting out of the dressing room, and Barclay's still there. I think they were leaving. I don't know if they left, but Barclay waited around for me, right? And I mean, most everybody is gone. And, he grabs me and walks out with me, and he was giving me it wasn't a rah-rah, you're going to do it. He essentially said, hey, they brought you here because they know what you can do. You're going to be a leader here, and you need to get your face out of the dirt and be that guy, right? And, so I didn't think I was acting that mopey about it, but, that was Barclay, right? He thought, and that was that generation. He had a lot of respect for the kids that came next. And I always respected that about Bark, and it's one of my fondest memories that he took the time, to hang around, and wait for me to kick me in the butt, just, because he thought I needed it.
So, yeah, I do remember the old guys and how they played and all of that. So when you were traded, this was kind of an interesting time period in St. Louis. You got traded and I want to say it was the 84-85 season?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you had that's right when Perina, or just before Ralston Perina had said, I'm done. Here you are. They tried to sell the team to Saskatchewan, and right. Mr. Orness came in.
Right. That's it. He owned the team at that time. Yes.
He wasn't too happy with your salary, was he?
Yeah. Well, and right now it's not even close to the league minimum. So yeah, it was that's what carpetbaggers do, right? They come in, they take an asset, they strip it down, and they, pretty it up and sell it, make money with it. So it was unfortunate, but, I knew it was coming, right? I had Red Berenson actually that year stopped in. He was coaching at Michigan and grabbed me after the game, and, we were talking, and he just, among other things, he just said, he told me that, he said, you're going to get traded. And, this was, I don't know, whatever, December. It was a winter. He came in to see Bark. So this is the part of hockey or sports that is a business. And we all know that going in. It was difficult to leave St. Louis for a lot of reasons. Justin, our second child, was born. He was 2 weeks old when I got traded. And, Marianne is from Carlisle, Illinois. So, her sister and brother-in-law, Kevin Jean Howe, were lived 6 miles from us, right? So we had a life outside of hockey, and, that gets yanked out from under you. But, those are the rules. And, you push on. So Marianne was, she was a rock star, right? I mean, we packed up next year and moved to Hartford, and even the rest of that year, it's a joke for us because I've traveled so much, throughout my career and after hockey. I always tease her about going to pack a bag for me because I got a road trip coming up, and it was that one trip that she made with the kids to come out and see me because I got traded on the road. that she actually did, throw a couple suits in and get some clothes so I'd have some clothes in Hartford, because I just went right from Buffalo to Hartford and started playing. And it's, our little inside joke, right? Like, it's just a miserable experience having to try to pack for somebody.
Yeah, no, I'm retired Navy, so I know all about those long-ass road trips. So you have a pretty special place in your heart for St. Louis. I remember seeing you on the pregame show for June 3rd. You talked a little bit about how the alumni still gets together and they're connected. Can you talk us a little bit about what I've talked to other players that have stayed in St. Louis or had that connection with St. Louis. What is it about St. Louis that brings so many Canadians guys, small town Canadian guys, to the city?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm the one guy that had a reason to stay in St. Louis. I married essentially, a girl from the area, right? And I didn't, but there's a lot of things about St. Louis. It's a small town with a big footprint, as I'd say. It's when I grew up, when I was there, the business community was fairly small, but it was dynamic, relatively small. I mean, it's not Chicago or New York, but it was a very dynamic environment. And, the Blues were so well received in St. Louis, healthcare, education, what else is there, right? And guys started second careers, and it just seemed like, St. Movie felt like home for them. And you saw that with, players that, continued from my generation after me, and I mean, we had guys like Blake Dunlop, Larry Page, all those guys, Neil Komanowski, Bruce Affleck, they all, they stayed. And that trend continued, why? It's a comfortable place to play. It has what you need. And it's an easy it's an easy lifestyle, right? You're not, you don't have an hour and a half commute or a 2-hour commute, and it's quality of life.
Go out to dinner and no one bothers you, not 20 people asking you for autographs and things like that.
I think it has what you're looking for, and and at that point, guys are retiring, they're early 30s, mid 30s, later 30s, they have children, they have families, and it's just a terrific place to raise children.
I wish I could have stayed there. I really do. I miss it something fierce. So you have a very interesting, I guess you could call it, second career. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, I was involved with the Players Association, the NHL Players Association when I was playing. And I found that, very interesting, because we had direct contact with the owners, and, it's the business of hockey and all that stuff. And Bob Goodnow, just said you should, he said, go to law school, right? You'll 20 years from now, you'll say that it's the best decision you've made, that sort of advice. And, it always sort of rattled around, but, I just decided that's what I was going to do. I had, my last year in Washington, I had 2 ruptured discs in my back. Continuing to play was not an option. So we moved to Detroit. I stayed with the Players Association for a few years, completed, my degree at, it was Detroit College of Law, is now Michigan State's law school. But, and then I had an offer to move back to Toronto. I didn't want to do that with the Players Association, so I stayed here. I started representing hockey players, and I was fortunate enough. A good friend of mine, teammate Brian Lawton, had started the hockey division at Octagon, and now it's. I'm the managing director of our hockey division at Octagon, Talent and Property. So it's a multinational company, and it's been a very good platform, to be an agent, and I've enjoyed having the ability to do other things within the company and that are not hockey related. And we've got a dynamic group, you know, represent 80 to 100 players at different times in the NHL. And you know, I've really enjoyed the relationships that I've built with clients, and you know, I'm watching them go through the same thing that I went through. So it's almost predictive, you know, at times.
Well, yeah. I also know that you represent a large section of blues players.
Yeah. Well, our company certainly did last year. You know, and yeah, so that was fun. It was a fun. You know, we're all watching it intently. So you know, I have to count them up, but I'm going to say six players on the Blues last year. So it was
actually, I think the number's a little bit higher than that.
Might be 7. I told you I have to count them up. They're not all my guys.
Well, I mean, I was impressed. I mean, I was going through the names last night. You have Perron, Steen, Tereshchenko. You had Maroon, Bortuzzo, and I know I'm missing
Binnington.
Binnington, the big one.
And
yeah,
Shen.
Binnington.
7. Yeah. Right. 7, unless I'm forgetting somebody.
Yeah, there might be one person we're forgetting, but let me ask you about Binnington real quick, because you've said some really interesting things in the past about him. He had a rough postseason this season. What about his character is going to mean that he's not a flash in the pan, that he's going to be able to come back next year and be that guy again?
Right. Well, Jordan was within the St. Louis organization. You know, had after his second year, it was his first full year in the American League. Had a strong playoff, and then that summer they brought in Phoenix Copley, and which I didn't agree with. It was 2 players at the same point of their career, and you can't develop 2 at the same time at the same level. So his career went sideways, predictably sideways. And he had to fight through that, including one year where the Blues didn't have an American League team and they dispatched him to Providence, the Bruins team. But he was in limbo for a year. And then last year, everybody knows the story to last year. So to answer your question, when you go through that type of, you know, I don't want to say trauma, but when you go through that period of time, particularly as a goalie, there's a lot of time to second guess yourself, and there's a lot of frustration that you have to, you know, push down. And when he received his chance last year for the first time, he maintained a very healthy, I'm going to show you guys, right? You didn't believe in me, I'm going to show you, and not pushing it overboard, because you know, you lose your focus at that point. So people talk about, well, you know, he did it 1 year. Well, most of us don't ever do it 1 year. Yeah. So it's there, right? And there's guys in the Hall of Fame that never did what he did. And so when I look at his playoffs last year, they win 2 in Winnipeg, surprise, surprise. They come home, they lose 2. And I'm outside the room and I'm talking, seeing some of the guys, and I'm waiting for him. Vladdy comes out. Coach comes out. And it was a toss-up who was more confident, Coach Berube or Jordan, after they dumped 2 at home. And of course, they go into Winnipeg and they win, right? So that's a tough game to play. Game 5, you lost 2 at home. And he did it again against Dallas, facing elimination, right? And then against San Jose, game 3 or 4, whatever I can't recall the story. A hand pass, and they gave it away. They had the game won. They iced the puck in the last minute, not once, twice. Yeah. Right? So okay, that you're just begging for bad stuff to happen, and then they lose the game on a hand pass that the referees move. Any one of those can put you in the ditch, right? And every time that he was faced with that ditch moment, he came back with a sterling performance. Yeah. And you could even say game 5 in Boston, right? Game 7 in Boston. Yeah. So you can't do that if you're a flash in the pan. You don't do it that many times. Too many times he had an opportunity to fall down, right? Or for it to unravel. not only did it not happen, it didn't come close to happening. He was in control of every one of those games. I mean, the Blues took control of that. They don't play like that unless they have confidence in the guy between the pipes. So this year, hey, you can make a decision, if you're management, any team, based on this year, and I'd say it's a mistake, right? Because, you know, it's just so unnatural, right? You're building your career, you get to mid-March, take 4 months off, come back and play 2 weeks of practice, and then go play an exhibition game or 3 or a seed, or you got, and now you're playing in the Stanley Cup, right? So, and you're living in that bubble.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it's like being in that bubble, right? Because I didn't like it when a few years we would stay in the hotel for the whole playoffs. And that's not a bubble. That's just, we just don't go home, right? You just go to the hotel in St. Louis. Or I never liked that. It just, I felt like the walls were closing in, right? And, you know, so it's, I don't know what that was like. It wasn't very enjoyable for them. You didn't have a flavor for it. It comes out that 20% of the Blues had COVID before they got to the bubble, right? And some, I would think of that group, there's probably some significant players. You have Vladdy, who's coming off a shoulder surgery, right? Now we know unsuccessful shoulder surgery. And what we know about, the little that they know about COVID is that they don't know the residual effect that it's going to have. And my son-in-law had contracted COVID this year, and the one thing that he was lost sense of taste and smell, but it was the fatigue that he said he's never felt fatigue like that. Now, I can't even imagine being an NHL hockey player and struggling through the after effects of that. So, listen, you know, obviously not the Blues year, but this is so out of the norm, right? I don't know how you rate anything on this year, but as it affects Jordan, or how Jordan is going to handle it next year, you know, he has an extremely confident belief in himself, right? Which doesn't get to cockiness, right? It's not fake. It isn't overblown. He's been through, he's paid enough dues, right? Before he got that opportunity last year, he's not letting go of this, you know, and he's only just starting to reach his, you know, potential. Goalies, 26 to 33, 34, yeah. That's meat, right? That's where they have it all together. So I don't give that a second thought.
Oh, I mean, great answer. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I want to see him. There's things, and to be honest, I've said it in the past, I'm a Jordan Binnington fan, but I'm not a Jordan Binnington fan because of the sample size. But there were things during this playoff that I did like, and there were things I didn't like. But I appreciate his swagger. And his swagger reminds me of the Blues of the late 80s, early 90s, you know. You may beat us, but you're not beating us the next night. You know, right. and that really, I enjoy that. I enjoy that about him. I'm hoping someday I get to talk to him, but that's down the road, I guess.
Right. I might be able to help you with that.
Say again?
I said I might be able to help you with that.
Well, see, I was going to talk to you about that offline, but that would every Blue that you represent, I have some little bitty connection to that I would love to talk to them. One of them, and I got to mention the one that we missed was, well, Walker was this year. On Nathan Walker, I have about 7 Australian fans who are begging me to get Walker on the show.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's an interesting story for sure.
So if you could move the pedal on that one a little bit, it would be greatly appreciated.
Give Alan a call when we're done.
Yeah. I'd appreciate it. Now I have a question for you that you might not like, but I'm going to ask anyways. You are not in the Hall of Fame, and your name hasn't been mentioned, but I really think that you and Cujo are the 2 guys that should be in the Hall of Fame for what you did in the period that you did it. What do you think about that statement?
Well, you can't talk about yourself in that light. Dougie Wilson went in this year, or will go in. Good for him. I congratulate him. We're sort of in that same ballpark, and in all honesty, I had my career. We didn't win. That's all I was interested in doing, and it didn't happen. We weren't good enough. I wasn't good enough, and anything else is, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And in many respects, I don't think of my career that way. But it's just me, right? To me, it was about winning, and if you didn't win, then it doesn't matter what happens after that. You had your career, move on. And I said to my dad. I was going to my very first training camp, and it was late August. We were playing golf, and I said, I said, "Hey, Dad, what if I'm not good enough?" Right? I mean, after all this, right, through all the hockey and all the college and that, you get right to the doorstep, and you're not good enough, which is true of most players, right? And he didn't skip a beat. He looked at me and he said, "If you're not good enough, I hope you're man enough to look in the mirror and admit it and get on with the rest of your life, because no matter how good you are, there will be the rest of your life. You don't play forever. So it's just a blip." And I always remembered that, right? That's something I always, stayed with me. And when my career was over, it's a horrible moment, when it's over, right? It's over. It's over. Even if for me, I was hurt. I didn't play the last half of the year. I really knew it was over. But it's that feeling that you don't belong anymore, right? You don't get to walk through that door because you don't belong, right? That's an earned right.
Yeah.
So that's a tough day. But beyond that, it was, I think about parts of my career that I could have been better, should have been better, wanted to be better. I don't think of the success. And that's what you're left with. And everybody handles it differently. But I never dwelled on it for that. It is what it is. I did what I did. That stands, and you move on, because there's the rest of your life. And when you see something that we're going through now, right, with COVID, everything else, pales, right? Like you control all that stuff. Who cares, right? And you do care. But there are bigger things in life, and that's what you focus on.
Yeah, you've got me almost tearing up a little bit with that statement. So I understand it, because when I retired from the Navy, and I'm not allowed to go on the ships that I used to be able to just walk on and go in an engine room, and I couldn't do that anymore. I wasn't part of that. It does affect you. It affects you in a deep way, that you're not part of that community anymore. So I do understand that.
Yeah. And it affects you that way because you cared that much about it, right? And it's just athletic. You say in the military, it's one serious step above that, because people get killed in that job, right? So there's a much deeper brotherhood there than there is in playing sports, at least how I see it. However, it is that feeling, right? Because you know that you earned your way there. And now you're just not able to. So you bask in your career. And I didn't want to play in the alumni game. I hadn't played in the outdoor game. I played once in 18 years, and hadn't been on the ice in 12. And I was like, I can't do that. I don't really want to do that. And it was Bruce Affleck and then Kelly Chase. Kelly, once he gets an idea in his head, right, you can't knock it out with a bat, right? So he called me 3 or 4 times, and I finally said, okay, I'll do it. I borrowed a bunch of equipment, went out there, kind of made I played 10 minutes, wasn't very good, but I couldn't believe how much fun I had in the locker room with all the guys that I didn't even play with, right? Like, they're all younger than I was. And, it was great in St. Louis, and there was 50,000 people there. And I sat there, I was talking to Marty, because we're splitting the game up, and I can't believe I wasn't going to play in this game. It would have been the dumbest thing I ever. How could I think that way, right? But So that's the part that you never lose, right? You're an NHL player. You're in the Navy. That part stays with you, and the friends that you have, they get older, they get a little grayer, they get thinner, they might put on a few pounds, but you can. I'm in that dressing room. It didn't take 5 minutes to pick up right where we left off in 1992. It was it's the same dumb hockey humor, but it's just so much fun.
Oh yeah. So since you brought this up, if the Winter Classic happens this year and the Blues have an alumni game up in Minnesota, are you going to play?
No. I've played my last game. Too old. Can't see it anymore. Not a chance. I mean, I would go and stand on the bench and laugh at them, but I'm not putting the gear on anymore.
See, I missed the Winter Classic in St. Louis, so I'm trying to get to this one if they have it. So if you're there, hopefully I'll get that chance to meet you that I never got before.
Right.
Well,
maybe.
Mike, I've taken so much of your time, and it's a great pleasure to finally meet you and talk to you. I hope this isn't the last time you're on the Blue Note Report, fan report. I would love to have you back again as the seasons go on and keep talking to you more and more about your time in St. Louis and your time on the ice, because you've had a wonderful career and you're just a wonderful person. And I want to say thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for the kind words. And if we do this again, I kind of hope it's in person because you're in Hawaii.
Well, you know what?
I can handle that.
You know what, Mr. Managing Director? I don't think you would have much of a problem finding a way to get over here at all.
Yeah, well, one of these days. We were there on our honeymoon. We haven't been back, so maybe another year.
I got a suggestion for you. Take you and all your Blues that during the off season, once this COVID thing's done, so you don't have to spend 2 weeks in a hotel room, and have a what do you call it?
Reunion.
No, not a reunion. A get together, a workup. When you all get together and you have a group hug. Have a group hug here in Hawaii. Call it a business trip. Bring them all, and I'll host you.
Yeah. Okay. We'll drift that one out on an email. Thanks.
Well,
I appreciate it.
Well, Mike, again, it is such a pleasure, and I'm not going to let you go without doing this. It is such a huge pleasure for me to talk to Mike on the Blue Note Fan Report. Mike, this is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, saying you got to know.
Thank you for having me.
I'm bleeding blue with you, and I can't wait to see you again on the Blue Note Fan Report. Aloha and mahalo. Wow. What an interview. What a guy. When I got told that Mike had agreed to do this, and when he texted me, my spirits were definitely lifted. That's a nice name to have in your Rolodex, I got to tell you. Mike is a fantastic guy. We had a really wonderful conversation both on and off camera, and I appreciate him taking time out of his day for us. And what a day for him to come on. The next day, Alan gets traded. Really, breaks your heart a little bit. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, what am I wearing? This shirt was given to me by Jess, Joe, and Jordan York. It says, I'm bad with the camera, Fun Walk for Hay, with PH for fun, for pulmonary hypertension. That's the disease that unfortunately took Hay's life. I am such a supporter of them. I'm wearing this shirt for them. I'll turn around and let you see the back again. I don't remember what it says. I think it talks about the fun walk or something like that. I want Haley to know that I'm always thinking of her and her family, and I'll do anything for them. You guys do me a favor, and in the comments, please just put fun for Hay. PHUN for Hay. And if you happen to be by a beach, please write Haley's name, Hayla, I think, L-E, Haley, yeah, Hayle, Haley's name in the sand, and take a picture of it and send it to me, and let us know where you took it. They're trying to get all 50 states. They're going to get Hawaii as soon as they lift the restrictions here. Not only that, The one thing that I need from you guys today, if you heard what Mike said, he has the connection to get me some players. Well, we got to let Mike know how much we appreciate him, so he'll do that for me. Especially my Aussie friends. Walker. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Wait, wait, wait. That's right. There's a chance I could get Nathan Walker, but I need you guys to put comments below on YouTube so Mike will see them. Well, a little bit of a long show, but I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. This is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, saying aloha, mahalo, and you got to know that I'm bleeding blue with you. Aloha. Let's go Blues!